Hello everybody, this is Howard the Teaserking coming to you with week 16 of the NFL. And just another killer week, 9-1 I believe. 9-1 with a trap on the Monday night game. So I have Atlanta even, and then I play Tampa in 7. And just another, this is the 5th time where I've really run the table. And I've had, I think, 2, maybe 3 really bad weeks where the table ran me. So I do get them back. But it's the same philosophy. I think early in the year, you didn't know Jacksonville and the Rams were that good, so you got burned by them a little bit. Now, I know my teams now. I know it's Philly and Jacksonville and Minnesota and the Rams, and you know who the strong teams are. So now you're not betting against them. Like I think I bet against Jacksonville a couple times and didn't play Philly where I should have, or the Rams. Now everybody knows why I locked the Rams against Minnesota when you see the way the Rams played last week. That's why I was shocked. I actually used that Rams-Seattle model for my Rams-Minnesota, and the Rams are very strong against Seattle. And if they can win against that defense, I thought they'd win against Minnesota. So now you understand that lock, because people were questioning why would you lock the Rams against Minnesota. Now you know, because the Rams are probably one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league. And a very strong dog, very strong defense, and they're very balanced on offense. Anyway, so again, been very hot and got it pretty much figured out now. I'm not surprised by certain teams. And we got a lot more information on the teasers for 2017. Now we got a new coach for the Rams. Now we got the Chargers playing well. So now you got the new coaches kind of figured out. Coughlin goes to Jacksonville. He's playing Miami Dolphin 1972, where they run and play defense. So basically, you've got all that figured out. So last week, so let me get deep into what teasers are and really how to play them. It's not just a regular bet or a parlay type of bet. I have Atlanta with Arkansas State over, and it was a beautiful bet. Arkansas State, and I told you last week there was a college game that I loved the over, and it was really low. That's what it was, and the reason was Arkansas State's got a really good offense, but Middle Tennessee State, they got a really strong quarterback and a good offense in Studstill, but he was injured the first 6 or 7 games. I think he played the first game, got injured, something like that, but the last 3 games, they're putting up 30 points a game. So again, they're very explosive. They were very explosive last year. So Studstill's back. Arkansas State scores a lot. So I knew it would be a high-scoring game. And I had a low number. The number was 61 or 62. So all I had to do was go over 56, which I think covered in the 3rd quarter or early 4th quarter. And it ended up being a 65-point game. We only needed 56. That's why it was a lock. Studstill's back, and they didn't adjust their number to Studstill. They kept the old Middle Tennessee stats for the year when they were averaging 22, 23 a game, going, oh, they're not going to score a lot. But with Studstill, they're not. They're a 35-point team. And that's why Teaserking had them in 2 teasers, and they both won. Moving on to the pros, my lock one's easy. Baltimore against Cleveland. First of all, Baltimore owns Cleveland, and everybody owns Cleveland. Cleveland's now 29-1 against in a teaser the last 2 years. So it's a 97% shot. If you don't bet that, I have no idea how to gamble, because that's exactly what you're looking for. And then I had them with Atlanta on Monday night. Atlanta owns Tampa. Had to win the game for the playoffs. They got the W. Shouldn't have been that close. They missed a field goal, a few easy turnovers. Atlanta's kind of hard to figure out. Their defense was terrible. They let Winston just roam around. I don't know. I thought their defense would be a little bit better than it was. But anyway, so here's the beauty of a teaser. So I got the Arkansas State over with Atlanta. I got the lock Baltimore with Atlanta, and I have Philly with Atlanta. And Philly's losing No, I think I had two. I had Baltimore with Atlanta, and I had Philly with Arkansas State over, and I got Philly with Atlanta. Well, Philly's losing 20-7 to the Giants, so I'm starting to like sweat a little bit, going, Jesus, Nick Foles he can't hang with the Giants, who have weak defense. So I go ahead and I play a Ram Atlanta teaser because I had the Rams over Seattle, and so I got the Rams. So I said, well, I'm going to play the Rams again with Atlanta because if Philly loses, then I only have Atlanta once, and I loved Atlanta. I thought all I got to do is win the game. So I bet them again with the Rams. So now I got 3 Atlanta teasers, and they're heavy. I had a lock with 17 units. I got an 11 unit with Philly, and then I have another 11 unit with the Rams. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? So everything wins. I go 9-1 last weekend. Everything wins. The only loser was a small play on the Lions over with the Bears, a very small play. So that's why you can't say, well, what did you win? Because I don't play the teaser the same way. And then when you really want to know what I did, I went 17-1. If you factor in, I had Baltimore 3 times. I had Atlanta 3 times. I had Philly twice. So if you really want to count the teaser, you could say, well, I had Atlanta 3 times. That's 3 wins. That would have been 17-1. But I don't count like that. The way I count is I got the team, and that's why people don't understand when I'm counting what I'm doing. I'm only counting the game once, even though it's in 2 or 3 teasers. And, so people just can't comprehend that's what I'm doing. I'm picking the game. So anyway, so I got so now I got Atlanta and 3 teasers for $4,000. And I don't want this stress. I want to play some insurance with a trap. Plus, I can win both ways. So I bet $2,000 on Tampa and 7, especially off the Monday nighter where Miami beats New England. I'm going, shit, how did New England lose? So I'm saying, well, Atlanta, I doubt they'll lose, but it's Monday night. Tampa could play them a tough game. Atlanta gives up points at the end. And so I got $2,000 on plus 7 with Tampa. I got $4,000 on even with Atlanta. Even if they lose by 7, it's a push, and I still win the $4,000. So I'm going, okay, my risk is only $2,000 now, which is fine. That's what you want to do. But I could win 6. So here goes the game. Tampa's got the lead. Tampa's up 10, or Atlanta's got the lead. Atlanta's up 10. Tampa cuts it to 3, misses the field goal at the end, and I win the whole 6. I win everything. The 3 teasers win, and the insurance play wins. That's the beauty of the trap. 3 Atlantas, and then the first halves are all in. So all you need is Atlanta even to win. Atlanta plays Tampa very strong. Here's the trend on Atlanta-Tampa. Atlanta was 6-1 in Tampa, and the favorite was 11-0, the last 11. So what that means, in the last 5 years, they played 11 times. The favorite, if you bet the favorite, you win. So I got an 11-0 trend. I got Atlanta playing well in Tampa. Atlanta had just beaten Tampa in Atlanta, and the only thing going against us was Monday night, where for some reason, and this is just bad coaching, where they don't play. They play good on Monday night, but then can't play on Sunday. And that was what I said with Miami. I told you they'd lose to Buffalo, and they did. I didn't even play it, and I picked it. So you have that going. So that's like the 5th time I've nailed. And to me, when I say I run the table, 9-1's running the table. 12-1. Occasionally it's 10-0. I'll run college. I'll go 13-1. So anyway, that's the 5th time I've run the table on a weekend, and just very exciting. It's the same picks I've done all year. It's the same theory. I'm looking at the stats, the trends, how teams play each other. What happens now is it gets easier because now you know this team A has to win for the playoffs, and Team B's out of it. So now does Team B try Team A? You know you're not gonna get that upset, right? Pittsburgh goes to the Bears and loses. Pittsburgh goes to Indy and barely win. They kick a field goal and screw all the bettors who are laying 10.5 or 4.5 in a teaser. But now they have to win, and they're motivated, and they're not going to just slide by. So that's what happens. That's why it gets a little bit easier. But the buyer has to beware here. The spreads are a little too high in some of the games and not high enough in others. And that's where the Teaserking comes in with the spreads. And I'm telling you, Vegas, these lines are just way off. I told you to take the Jets against New Orleans because the Price Petty is not that bad, and he wasn't that bad. He's not great yet, but look at Huntley on Green Bay. I mean, his first game he sucked, and then as he started to get better, he sucked the second week, but now the third or fourth week he's getting better. Now he's not a star yet by any means, but he's a lot better after 4 or 5 games than he was after 1 or 2. Bryce Petty, the guy puts up 50 touchdowns at Baylor. He's got to know what he's doing. He throws. You can't tell me the guy doesn't know how to quarterback. Now, I don't know what these systems are in college that are so foreign to the pros that they can't even complete a pass or read a coverage. I don't buy that crap. You can read a coverage, you read a coverage. It can't be that hard. Tony Romo can do it. So how hard can it be? I mean, look at half these quarterbacks that can do it. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's terrible. I mean, so you watch the safety, you watch the corner, here's the blood. Fine, it's not that hard to read coverage. So that's my point. So Bryce Petty, and I told you the spread was too high. They made him 15 and a half. Well, they screwed themselves. The line never really moved. Nobody really bet the game. If anything, the line stayed and maybe went down to 15. So if anything, you had jet action, so the bookies lost. You didn't have the New Orleans action that you would have wanted to get the losers, right? Nobody's laying, the spread didn't go up to 18-19, right? So therefore, any action was either small on New Orleans or was on the Jets, and they lost, and they didn't get the New Orleans action. That spread had no business being 15.5, 16. Spread should have been 10.5, 11, right around where the number is. Let's say you started at 10, you're going to get New Orleans action. Now New Orleans wins by 12, so maybe you started at 11, which is about where you should have had it at. And you got it at 11. You got a lot of New Orleans action kicking it up to 13. You probably don't have that much Jets action, and they win by 12, and you clean up on the 12.5, 13.5 New Orleans. But at 15.5, you got more than 2 touchdowns. Who the hell do you think is betting the game? Which means to tell me that you think you actually know what you're doing, Vegas bookmakers, that you actually think you know who's going to win, which you don't. And don't play arrogant with me, because I know. I've been doing this my whole life, and I know when your lines smell. And that line, and I told you, just watch last week's tape. I told you it was way too high. If I was a bookie, my line would have been 11 or 12, and I would have had action, and I would have won or lost. I don't know, but I would have had action. The same jet action I got at 15.5, I get at 11 or 12. I get more New Orleans action, and New Orleans they win by 12, so anything I got at 13 and 14, which would have been a lot more than the 50. You basically price yourself out. Once you start laying more than 2 touchdowns in the pros, forget about it. And you killed the teaser action, so you got no action on the game. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You want even money on the game, and you want a lot of money. You want to win the juice. You want $1 million on both sides and win 100,000. That's what you want. You want that on every game. You want to win that juice. That's what you're playing for. You don't want to actually try to pick the game and make the spread so high that nobody bets it. You don't want one-sided action, and you just certainly don't want it so high that nobody puts money on it. The goal is to put action on both teams, not to scare people away, because you make the spread so ridiculous, high or low. Anyway, so that's what I'm thinking. So now you have high spreads. Now you know who's going for the playoffs, right? You got New England, Pitt going for the 1 seeds. You got Minnesota. You've got Philadelphia going for the 1 and 2 seeds. So you got to be careful that they're not making the line 4 or 5 points higher than it should be. And then it's a tough bet. It's not that easy. The teams, they're still pros. They don't just, well, Minnesota's playing Green Bay without Favre or Rodgers. Therefore, they're going to win by 30. Huntley's not bad. I mean, you still are playing the pros, but you got to still be careful. Minnesota should win the game fairly easy because they need the game, and I think some of the I think Clay Matthews isn't playing, Rodgers is out, and Minnesota looks really good with their defense. Again, you're betting Minnesota's defense. So that leads to the first game. We'll go with Minnesota Green Bay, but I'm just pointing out the line. If this was if Rodgers was playing and Green Bay would have needed the game for the playoffs, Green Bay would be a 3-point favorite. If Rodgers is playing, at the most, Minny's a 3-point favorite. So you've now got Minny -9 instead of Minny -3. Just an FYI. However, without Rodgers, yeah, there's a few more points. Maybe it's Minny -6. So you're laying an extra field goal in this game because Minny needs it for the 1 seed. So the question is, Minny get it for the 1 seed? Well, let's take a look at the head-to-head. The favorite's 10-2 in this game, 5-1 the last 6. Green Bay is 10-2 at home and 21-2 overall in the series. So this is normally Green Bay being favored and Green Bay covering at home. Green Bay is a very strong home favorite. However, without Rodgers, and now that they're out of the playoffs, I feel they'll not that they're going to give up, they'll still play for Huntley, but I just think Minnesota is just got a bit too much. Now keep in mind, Minnesota knocked out Rodgers, so there'll be a little extra for Green Bay here. I'd like, well, let's take a look at some of the stats first. This year, Minny is 11-3 in a teaser, 4-1 as a road favorite. Green Bay is 1-2 as a home dog, 10-4. They're 3-0 against as a home dog and 10-4 against. So really, because of Huntley, they're not that strong of a home dog. We can go back to last year, Minnesota. They're not a great road favorite. They're 6-3, 22-8 overall, 6-3 against as a road favorite. Green Bay is a home dog, not very, they're not a home dog much. 2-2, 3-1 against. So Green Bay usually is a home dog when Rodgers is out. If we go back let's go back to 2013 when Rodgers got injured. They're 3-3 as a home dog, 5-1 against. So Minny's not a great road favorite. Green Bay is a solid. They're not a good home dog, but it's usually without Rodgers. Rodgers is playing. It's an easy lock, Minnesota, and 9 or 10 points. 3 up to 9. When I look at the numbers. Minnesota's number 6 in the league, plus 7.2. They scored 24, but what I love about Minny here is their defense at 17-3. Huntley's going to have a hard time scoring here. Green Bay, Green Bay is 22-23. They're a minus 1.7 or 2 points a game, and that's about where they are with Huntley. So what you have is Minnesota's about a 9 points better than Green Bay, which it's about right at the number, so it's a tough number to have. You got to get it 3 and under. Try to get it under 3. I got it at 8.5 yesterday. I see a lot of 8. I saw some 8.5s and some 9s. If you have to buy a point, get it under 3. But I don't think it'll be that close that it'll end in 3. Let's look at the quarterbacks. Case Keenum. 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Very, very strong. I like how he scrambles. Again, Green Bay's defense is their problem. Green Bay, again, gives up 24 a game. So Keenum will score on them. Let's look at, let's see, Green Bay's quarterback, Brett Huntley. See, here's the problem with Huntley. 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. it's the interceptions that's the problem. Once you have that, I mean, you got 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So he's going to turn the ball over against Minnesota. So if Minnesota gets up, and they should, it's going to be hard for Green Bay to come back. Huntley likes to run a little bit too much. His wins came against Cleveland and I think Tampa. So, and in overtime. So if he's going to overtime with Cleveland, he ain't going to do much against Minnesota. So I like Minny here, laying the 3. Again, it's for the 1 seed. They beat Green Bay handily when they knocked Rodgers out, which is kind of misleading. This is a favorite game. The favorite's very strong. Minnesota's good against the number this year. Green Bay's just got a lot of injuries. Like I said, they've this should be like a give-up week. Like, okay, we can't make the playoffs. Yeah, they'll try a little bit, but I think they're more going through the motions than they're going to be on. Like Miami was on fire against New England. I don't see Green Bay being on fire against Minnesota. Minnesota needs the game. I just like the defense. When you have a good defense, you know, the quarterback can be off, or even if you have a turnover or two, you still have that defense to hold you in. And I just, the way Minny's playing, I definitely like Minny here laying the 3. My second game is Jacksonville and Frisco. Now, the Minnesota game spread was a little high. Maybe should have been 7, but because they're going for the 1 seed, they've jacked up the spread a little bit. Hoping you won't bet Minnesota because they need the game. Like, they think everybody's an idiot. They, meaning the Vegas line makers. Here's a line that is way off. Okay? First, superficially looking at it, Jacksonville needs the game to clinch their division. They can still get the 1 or 2 seed. If they win out, New England has trouble with Buffalo and Pittsburgh. Who knows how they play at Houston? I mean, theoretically, if one of them struggles, Jacksonville's beat Pitt. So if Pitt loses to Houston or next week, who do they got next week? I think they got Cleveland. Pitt. Yeah, Pitt's got Cleveland. Pitt's not going to lose next week against Cleveland. So if Pitt stumbles against Houston, which is highly unlikely with T.J. Yates quarterbacking, but if they do, and Jacksonville wins, then Jacksonville gets the 2 seed, which is not going to be, so they got plenty to play for. Plus, they want to win their own division. If they lose this week and lose to Tennessee, they don't even win the division. So Jacksonville must win this game. Frisco is Frisco. All right, Garoppolo came in. He beat Cleveland and Houston, I believe. A bunch of nobodies, or he beat Tennessee. I don't know. Whoever he beat the Bears 15-14. I think Houston 26-16, and last week he beat. I keep going to my sheet from last week. Frisco, he beat Tennessee. So basically, what you have there is, all right, he hasn't really beat a really strong team. I mean, the Bears, a lot of field goals. Houston, weak defense. Okay, is he good? I don't know. Yeah, they won 3 games, and 2 of them by a point. But now you're playing Jacksonville, and he hasn't seen this defense yet. So if Roethlisberger has trouble with this defense, what do you think Garoppolo's going to have? They're going to really pound Frisco in this game. Here's the most devastating number that you should look at. Jacksonville is the number 2 team in the NFL. They score 26 a game and only give up 15. They're a plus 11.8. They're a plus 12. You got the Rams as a plus 12, Jacksonville as a plus 12, and Philly as a plus 11. Those are your top 3 teams, period. Get the emotion out of it, get who New England is, get who Pittsburgh is. That's it. Those are the top 3 teams. Jacksonville, the Rams, and Philly. And let's look at San Francisco. They score 18 a game, give up 24. They're a -6. How the hell are they going to score against this defense that gives up 15? That, I know. Now, sometimes when I say I feel a game, I don't know if people understand that. I base it on looking at when a team plays other teams. In other words, Jacksonville puts up 30 on Seattle. And what that tells me is, shit, if Jacksonville puts up 30 on Seattle and basically ran up and down the field, and Wagner and the other linebacker were still playing at that point. Yeah, Richard Sherman was out and Chancellor, but still they put up 30 on him. It tells me, okay, if Jacksonville can put up 30 on them, then they can put up 30 on Frisco. And that's a big way, it's a good way to handicap, because when they play a tough team and you see that they are successful against them, you know, that's really what you're looking for. That's why I locked the Rams against Minnesota. They had went to Jacksonville at 1, and they owned Seattle. They play Seattle with their great defense very well. So therefore, I didn't think the Rams would have a problem with the Vikings. And since then, they've covered every week, I believe. Except for the Philly game, but I had Philly as the dog there. So you got to know when to take the dog. The dog's got to be a strong team getting points. The Rams are a strong team, so that one lost, but okay. But since then, we've locked the Rams, and we've had success with them. Anyway, so that's my biggest thing, is watching Jacksonville against Seattle. And I just say that there's no way Frisco is, so Frisco's what's this game here? Frisco. So Jacksonville is 18 better. And you only have them laying 4. I'll give you an example. Here's New England against Buffalo. New England's 12 points better. They're a +9. Buffalo's a -3. But the spread's 11.5. The spread's right on where that difference is. Okay, not bad. You got KC Miami. KC is 10 points better. The spread's 10. Okay, fine. Here you got Jacksonville 18 points better, and the spread's 4. And that's not even in the teaser yet. You can take a -4, you get 2 points in Jacksonville in a game they must have against a new quarterback who has not seen a defense like this. And a team that, has beaten Seattle. They beat somebody pretty good last week, I think. Who did Jacksonville beat? Well, they crushed Houston last week. So, I mean, I think what happens is they're kind of a young team, and they don't know how good they are. And then they play Seattle, and they beat them. Then all of a sudden they go, wow, we beat Seattle. We're good. We scored 30 points on Seattle. We're good. Boom, they crush Houston. They're going to crush Frisco. I mean, this game be within 20. That's about right. I mean, it'd be like 31-7, somewhere in that neighborhood. Jacksonville's not getting credit from the line people to make him -4 because they think Garoppolo's going to be the man. A lot of it is you got to look at who they beat. I mean, if you beat Cleveland and Tampa Bay like Brett Hundley did, it ain't a big deal. Now, if Brett Hundley wins at Philly, wins at the Rams, and beats Jacksonville at home, hey, Brett Hundley's the man. He's Joe Montana. But until he does that, he's not the man. He beat Cleveland in overtime, which they almost lost that game. And then he beat Tampa Bay in overtime, who also sucks, at home. So, just to show you, he didn't beat anybody. That's why we're taking Minny. Same thing, Garoppolo. Okay, you beat the Bears. That's okay beating them in Chicago, but now there's some tape on him, and now he's playing this rough defense, tough pass defense. He ain't gonna do anything on them. They'll be lucky to get, like I said, they'll get 7, maybe 10 points. Jacksonville is now starting to score. Fontenot should be playing. They're figuring out how to use Blake Bortles, who's terrible, but you put him in the right system, you let him run the right plays, he can look good. Like Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco stinks, but if you give him the right receivers and run the right routes and play action pass it and mostly run the ball, then even Flacco looks okay. So basically that's what you have. So I think Jacksonville comes in. Frisco's defense, I mean, let's look at their defense. I mean, Christ, their defense gives up 24 a game. I mean, the worst defense in the league is Houston, which is surprising because they're normally a good defense. That's why you watch the stats, because you would still think Houston's an under team with a good defense. Their defense sucks. They give up 27 points a game. Just an FYI. That's why you look at the numbers, because then you get a better flavor. So it's Houston gives up 27, Indy gives up 26, Cleveland gives up 26, Washington gives up 26, the Giants 25, Miami, who you think is a great defense, gives up 24, and the Lions went from like a minus 18, now they're minus 24. So you look at it, Arizona surprisingly is a minus 24, but here's Frisco, minus 24, so that's going to help Jacksonville, and Jacksonville with that real rough, they're the best in the league, 14.9. It's just, and they're a plus 11 and 8. I mean, they're still scoring 26 a game. So let's put this in proper perspective. Frisco only scores 18 a game, and they put up 60 on the Rams in that one Monday night game when it was like 60 to 59. They both scored and scored and scored. Or no, it was that Thursday night game. So I mean, basically, even with that game, they only averaged 18 a game. Even with them winning, they scored, 15 on the Bears, and they scored, what did they do last week? They scored 25 on Tennessee, and Tennessee's defense gives up, where are they? Tennessee. They give up 22-8, so that's about right what they did. But here they're facing a defense giving up 14. The offense scores. Great defense. Put pressure. Great running back. Fontenot will be back. Even if he's not, the backup played well. Bortles is playing well. They have to win the game. And Frisco is just, they're not on the same field with them. Let's look at the numbers. Jacksonville's a little skewed because they started off a little bit rough. So they're 10-4 versus the number. They're 2-2 as a road favorite. So it's hard to really count them. When they went to London, I think twice, I don't know, once. So that screws you up a little bit. But the way they're playing now, beating Seattle, killing Houston, I look for more of the same and a must-win game so they can clinch the division. This is the week they're clinching division, so you wanna keep your eyes open on the teams that, Minnesota clinches the Central, wants the 1 seed. They gotta win. We're taking them. Here, Jacksonville, to clinch the South, has to win, and they're playing both teams. If you notice, what I'm doing here is you got strong teams in must-win games to clinch divisions, so they have to win, and they're playing weak teams. You got Green Bay without Rodgers, and you got Frisco, who's just terrible anyway. And the best part with Jacksonville, all right, Minny, you got a little sweat. You got 9 laying 3. Maybe you find a 2.5. All right, they got to win by a field goal. Not too much of a problem. Here you got freaking Jacksonville. You're going to get 2 points. It's unbelievable. Garoppolo is not Joe Montana. He's not Tom Brady. Let's get that understood. We don't know what he is. He's okay. Maybe he scrambles around. Not against Jacksonville. Not in this game. You watch him against the Rams. I think they play the Rams next week. Then you'll really get a good feel of Garoppolo, especially if the Rams need the game for a 1 seed or whatever. So what I'm doing is I'm taking 2 strong teams, playing weak teams. I'm playing very strong defenses. The fact they're on the road's meaningless because they both need the game. And, at the end of the day, you line up. It doesn't matter where you are, if you're in Green Bay or in Minnesota or in Jacksonville or at Frisco. Now, the only thing with Jacksonville is they are traveling coast to coast, so they'll be a little bit tired, but they'll take their caffeine and they'll be fine. So with that said, you just got to look at the players. So let's look at Frisco, home dog. This year, 3-3 is a home dog. 5-1 bet against is a home dog. Overall, Frisco's 10-4 with or without. Jacksonville's 10-4, 7-7 against. Now Jacksonville has been like Cleveland. They've been a huge bet against team. That's what threw me the first few weeks of the year. Is all of a sudden they had the guy from the Giants, Coughlin, and all of a sudden they're playing this strong defense. Where did the defense come? Where was the defense last year? How bad was the coach last year that you didn't know he had this defense and he couldn't stop anybody? Okay, they pick up Fontenot. It was a great pick. He was a good college player for a year until he decided to take last year off. But he's playing well. So basically, that's what you have. You have basically the New York Giants, right? You have very strong running with Lawrence Taylor on defense. Only you got 6 or 7 Lawrence Taylors on this defense. Very strong defense. Very strong defense are great road teams because they show up. What happens on the road, you lose because the quarterback throws a few interceptions. You get the turnovers. When you got a strong defense, they just shut the other team down. There's nothing the other team can do. If you got a great defense, you can't complete a pass. You can't run the ball on them. You're screwed. There's nothing you can do to beat them. So that's what Frisco has. Let's go to 16-17. Really, Jacksonville, their stats are really skewed because they're so bad for so long, but now they're out of it. So you can't really go back too far with Jacksonville and say, oh, look, for the last 3 years. They are a strong road dog, 10-2 if I include 16, but they're 2-2 as a road favorite, which I think is all this year. Yeah, so they weren't a road favorite at all in 16 or probably in 15. So it's really hard to look at them, but their stats are coming up, and that's what you look at. Frisco is a home dog, 7-5 since 16. But let's look against 9-3 and bet against Frisco 23-7. So you can see Frisco's been a weak team, a good bet against team. I'm going to go back to 2015. Doesn't really help me. I thought they were a little weak as a home dog, but I don't really see it. They're like 14-6 against. Frisco is extremely weak as a road dog, but we'll get there later. Again, let's look at the quarterback. Blake Bortles. 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Not bad. Again, we saw Huntley was 8-8. Here, Bortles is 19-8, and they throw for 2.25 a game. So they're a well-balanced team, which is that's what you want. You can't just blitz Bortles. They're going to run Fontenot until they get tired. And that helps too because that's less possessions for Frisco and it keeps the defense rested. The most important thing about Fontenot as your running back, who's a very good running back, is you rest your defense. That's number one, and then no analyst but me tells you that. That's the real reason these teams win, is to have a rested defense. If you watch the Atlanta game, what did they say? Oh, the Atlanta defense looks tired. Oh. And I don't know. I mean, I don't like Gruden. He's not a very good analyst. But, he's saying, how does he know they're tired? I mean, you can't. And they keep moving in new ones. Yeah, because they're tired. They're moving in fresh bodies. Absolutely ridiculous. But that's the key. If you can run the ball, you run time off the clock, and you keep your defense on the bench, and you win the games. Let's look at what does Garoppolo in 4 games. So he's played 4 games, really. He's 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He throws for 256, so he's throwing for a lot of yards. He gets into the red zone. He doesn't produce touchdowns. 3-2 doesn't tell me anything about how strong he is. So that's really where you stand with him. And again, in the numbers, Jacksonville is a +12, and Frisco is a -6. So you got an 18-point edge. You're laying 4, you get 2. It's just, That's perfect. That's exactly what you're looking for. Frisco doesn't scare me. They really don't run the ball. They really, okay, Garoppolo probably throwing these short passes. I'm not Shanahan was good on Atlanta. Um, I don't see Shanahan as, okay, he's decent. In today's game, he's decent because the coordinators are so bad. But I don't buy he's all that strong. His dad was okay, nothing special either. But again, it's so weak. There's nobody there, so he looks better than he is. Keep an eye on these high spreads again. New England, be careful with. Buffalo's not a bad team. That trend it's New England's 5-1, but it's a lot of wood. Minus 11.5, even down to 5.5 against the, as long as McCoy plays for Buffalo, they got a decent defense. I know New England beat them 24-3, laying 7, but laying 11.5. And that's the other point. It's very important to know the role of the team. I had Kansas City last week because I was going to play the dog in the San Diego-Kansas City game. And I was waiting for KC to go -2, which these books, for some reason, think they can make these 2 and 3 point swings like it's no big deal. But San Diego was 1.5, 2 the whole week, even Sunday morning or Saturday morning. I took Kansas City because they were getting points. I had 7.5 or 8. KC pounds them, blows them out. But you got to be careful now. Kansas City now is a 10-point favorite against Miami. I'm not buying that Kansas City is going to blow them out. They're not a good home favorite, but they're a good home dog. Some teams are better as dogs than they are as favorites. And you got to keep that in mind. A couple other games that just for note. Cincinnati, Detroit. Cincinnati's 14-0 as a home dog. Okay? And the Seattle-Dallas game, I know Seattle looked bad last week, and the Rams killed them. And I had the Rams as the dog there. Had the Rams been favored, I would have been taking Seattle. So that's how some of the luck works, right? You get the right team in the right spot as the favorite, right? Had the Rams been favored, I'm on Seattle and I get killed. Although it's a different game if Seattle's a home dog, believe it or not. Kansas City is a home dog. They smoked San Diego, but had them been a favorite, San Diego might win the game. It's weird, but the team knows their favorite or dog and gets pissed about being the dog. Don't think that's not motivation. Oh, what do they think? We're getting points. Seattle lost by 100 last week to the Rams. Be very, very careful thinking that Dallas is going to beat them by 50 because Zeke Elliott's back. I would look for Seattle, who's still in the playoff picture, to play a hell of a game. Coach Pete's going to have them motivated. They are not going to give up 45 to Cowboys. I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle gets the W in this game. I know they're injured, but as long as you got Russell Wilson, I don't care that Elliott's back. Yes, it's good for Dallas, but a team like that with a coach like that, and they get killed. And if you watch the interview after, they asked Coach Pete, and he said, "There's nothing I'm happy with," and he was pissed off. And that's going to be huge on Sunday. Do not be surprised if Seattle gets the W here, and be very careful if you want Dallas and lay the 5, thinking Seattle's done and they're going to just roll over and play like Cleveland. And Dallas is going to kick the shit out of them because Elliott's back. Be very, very careful. Seattle and 11 is a very, very good bet this week. Seattle is a very strong dog. Dallas is a very weak home favorite. But more importantly, Seattle off a loss like that, and they got killed at home, are embarrassed, and they're pissed, and they have enough talent to do something about it. So all I'm saying is be very leery of Seattle this week to get a W after the way they played. They are going to come out and they're going to be pissed off, and they're going to play their best game of the year. And it might not be enough with Elliott back and Dallas, but do not be surprised Seattle gets the W here because they are a pissed off team, and they're still in the playoffs. They're still 8-6. They're tied with Detroit, and they're tied with Atlanta. No, Atlanta's one up, so they have to win the game. Seattle, it's do or die, and so does Dallas. Yeah, they're tied with Dallas. So Dallas, Seattle, and Detroit are basically tied for the last playoff spot because Carolina's got 10 wins and New Orleans, and then Atlanta's at 9 wins. And they play New Orleans, and I'm not sure. Do they play Carolina next week? Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta's got Carolina. So Atlanta ends with New Orleans and Carolina. Theoretically could lose both games, but they've already got the 9 wins. That's why I loved them against Tampa, because they had to win it. And if you notice what's going on now, they're putting all the division games at the end, which is really stupid, because half of them won't mean anything next week, and everyone's a division game. So I've already done my homework on that. But basically, you got to be careful with it. So what was that? That game is in Atlanta, Carolina, Atlanta. And keep in mind, Atlanta beat Carolina when they were, I don't know if they were undefeated, but the year Carolina went to the Super Bowl and were winning every game. They go into Atlanta as a small favorite, and Atlanta kills them. So Atlanta does play Carolina okay at home. Anyway, with that said, they've already got to 9, so this is basically a playoff game. And it's Seattle in a playoff game, but they're weak. They got their injuries. But now the backups, like I said with Brett Hundley, the first game he doesn't know what he's doing. The second game, third and the fourth game, he's getting a little better. And that's what Seattle, and that happened in New England. Remember in the first couple of games, they couldn't stop the wind. Then their players started to learn the system, and then they became a strong defense again. Well, it's the same thing here. You've got you've got Seattle's defense without Wagner, without the other linebacker who I'm slipping my mind, and so Richard Sherman's replacements had 4 or 5 games now, and Cam Chancellor's. Williams is really the core of the defense, the strong safety. But I just like that. Seattle, I'm sure their backup linebackers are fine, but after this loss, look out. And that's just, they're a very good dog anyway, but if you think Dallas is going to beat them 20-0, you're nuts. It ain't going to happen. Yeah, Seattle's not going to get crushed 2 weeks in a row, not for a playoff berth. This is money time. This is Coach Pete time. All those championships he won at USC and all of them in Seattle, they get there, and even against New England, they play him tough. You cannot bet against Coach Pete. I bet against him last week because I had the Rams in points. I got away with it. You don't screw with Coach Pete as a dog very often and win. All I'm saying. So be careful about betting Dallas thinking they're going to blow out Seattle. It's not going to happen. I've watched too many of these games for the last, 1970. I've seen it too many times when the Steelers or the Raiders in the 70s would lose. Blood in their eyes, you bet them back. When Montana lost, you bet them back. They don't like losing, and they don't like to lose twice in a row. Granted, you got some injuries, but Russell Wilson's still the key. It didn't matter. As long as Montana played, you bet Frisco. As long as Tom Brady's playing, you bet New England. And as long as Russell Wilson's there, you can bet Seattle. If Wilson's out, that's a different story. But as long as Wilson's playing, they need the game for the playoff, and it's Coach Pete. Keep an eye on Seattle. Anyway, www.teaserking.com. He's on fire. 5 times I've run the table this year. I'm hoping for 6. Hoping next week for 7. Bowl games. I got a lock in the bowl games going Saturday. It's a Saturday or Saturday-Sunday lock. I don't remember when the other game is. And a lot of strong plays in the pros already. I have the lock at 17 units, and I have 3 11-unit plays between the college and the pros. So I'm using the lock with the pro and the pros anyway, and I'll have more. But right now it's very hot. Look to keep running the table. Like I said, it's been 5 times. And I think twice or 3 times the table fell on me. So I'm getting my money back. but it's been a very very focused last few weeks. I know who Jacksonville, who Philly, who the Rams are, and early on it caught me, but now I'm not. This is how I learn. I'm not stupid. I'm not taking Frisco as a home dog against Jacksonville because Jacksonville stinks. I know Jacksonville is one of the best teams in the league, and I'm betting them against a weak 49er team. I'm always looking to bet against the weak teams. Minnesota against weak Green Bay, Jacksonville against weak Frisco. That's how you bet. The weak teams with the weak defenses aren't going to get the upset. The upsets come from turnovers and just the other team, getting hot. But I don't see it in either of these. Both teams need to win for their seeds and a lot of others. So be careful of New England against Buffalo. They're laying too many points. If that comes down to 9, you lay 3 with New England's about all I would lay. Possibly 4, but that would be it. They're just not that strong, and Buffalo is a very strong team. And they play each other twice, so it's not a. They're not playing. If they were playing Cleveland, I'd lay 11.5, or if they were playing Tampa, I'd lay 11.5, but not here. All right, everybody, come on aboard. You can get the month for $250. You can get the bowls for $150. Just the package. You can get. I'll give you the week for $100, the whole week. Whatever you want. You got all the college bowls through the playoffs, $150, and you get the month for $250 for the next 5 weeks, and or you can just, if you want these next 2 weeks, I'll go $100 a week on them, no problem. I'm hot. I'm here to make you money. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Have a Merry Christmas. I won't be doing a video next week. I will be out of town, so I apologize, but I'm trying to give you enough information so you can make some picks. You can figure out what to do. So have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Good luck to you. Again, www.teaserking.com. Take care, everybody.